Six Flags and Cedar Fair are considered to be North America's two biggest players when it comes to the regional theme park industry. Both companies have a large portfolio of properties and attractions, but take on very different approaches and identities. The idea of combining the two companies has been discussed in the past, with the most recent discussions taking place in 2019. But nothing had ever come of them. In fact, many would probably dismiss the idea of such a merger as far-fetched or unrealistic. However, rumors of a merger resurfaced once again in early November. In an unexpected turn of events, Cedar Fair and Six Flags announced on November 2nd that the two companies would enter into a definitive merger of equals transaction, effectively combining the two competing companies into one theme park superpower. Good day everyone, my name is Parker, and in today's episode of Theme Park Parlay, we're going to discuss everything we know about the merger so far. I'll also share my own thoughts and opinions about it, and discuss what changes we could expect going forward. This is certainly a monumental moment in history for the theme park industry, so without any further ado, let's talk theme parks. Okay, let's begin our discussion by talking about what this deal actually entails. This $8 billion deal is a merger of equals transaction, which will result in a single chain that will operate 27 amusement parks, 15 water parks, and 9 resort properties across North America. The new company will be branded under the Six Flags name, but will be traded on the New York Stock Exchange under Cedar Fair's ticker, FUN. The company will be headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina, not too far away from Carowinds, and they'll maintain significant financial and administrative operations in Sandusky, Ohio. The deal was unanimously approved by both the Cedar Fair and Six Flags Board of Directors, and the merger is expected to close in the first half of 2024, following approval from Six Flags shareholders, regulatory approvals, and satisfaction of customary closing conditions. Approval from Cedar Fair unit holders is not required. As for who will run this company, Richard Simmerman, the current president and CEO of Cedar Fair, will serve as the president and CEO of the new company. Salim Basoul, the current president and CEO of Six Flags, will serve as the executive chairman of the new company's board of directors. Brian Withrow, Cedar Fair's chief financial officer, will continue to serve as the CFO of the new company. And Gary Mick, Six Flags' current CFO, will serve as the Chief Integration Officer of the combined company. The board of directors will consist of 6 members from the former Cedar Fair board and 6 members from the former Six Flags board. As far as stockholders go, Cedar Fair unit holders will receive 1 share of common stock in the new combined company for each unit owned. And Six Flags shareholders will receive 0.58 shares of common stock in the new combined company for each share owned. Once everything is settled, Cedar Fair shareholders will own approximately 51.2% of the company, and Six Flags shareholders will own 48.8%. Six Flags will also declare a special cash dividend for their shareholders the day before the transaction closes. Okay, that was a lot of business talk, but this brings me to my first big observation. Although the new company will use the Six Flags name, it looks like they're using more of Cedar Fair's infrastructure. They'll be using Cedar Fair's ticker, Cedar Fair's headquarters, and be led by Cedar Fair's current CEO and CFO. This may sound like good news to Cedar Fair fanboys, including myself, but I hesitate to say that this means that Cedar Fair will have more power or that Cedar Fair will be running the show. It's important to remember that this deal is a merger of equals. Cedar Fair isn't acquiring Six Flags, but rather, Cedar Fair and Six Flags are sharing their assets to become one unified chain. The whole idea of Six Flags versus Cedar Fair doesn't really exist anymore, because once all of this goes through, these companies won't exist. What we're talking about here is a new company that will be built on pieces of the old ones, but we are talking about something new here. Nevertheless, I'm pretty happy with the new structure, and I am glad to see that Richard Simmerman will be the CEO instead of Salim Basoul. At this point, you may be wondering, what's the point? Why would these companies ever think about merging, and why, after so many years of being competitors, is it happening now? Well, I think the best people to answer those questions are Richard Simmerman and Salim Basoul themselves. Here's what Simmerman had to say about the merger. Our merger with Six Flags will bring together 2 of North America's iconic amusement park companies to establish a highly diversified footprint and a more robust operating model, to enhance park offerings and performance. Together, we will have an expanded and complementary portfolio of attractive assets and intellectual property to deliver engaging entertainment experiences for guests. The combination also creates an enhanced financial profile, with strong cash flow generation to accelerate investments in our parks to delight our guests, driving increased levels of demand and in-park value in spending. I have great respect for the Six Flags team and look forward to joining forces as we embark on this next chapter together. Celine Basul added, "The combination of Six Flags and Cedar Fair will redefine our guest amusement park experience as we combine the best of both companies. Six Flags and Cedar Fair share a strong cultural alignment, operating philosophy, and a steadfast commitment to providing consumers with thrilling experiences. By combining our operational models and technology platforms, we expect to accelerate our transformation activities and unlock new potential for our parks. We are excited to unite the Cedar Fair and Six Flags teams to capitalize on the tremendous growth opportunities and operational efficiencies of our combined platform for the benefit of our guests, shareholders, employees, and other stakeholders." I think one of the biggest takeaways here is that despite the fact that the two companies were often seen as competitors, their markets don't actually have a lot of overlap. This means that the parks are actually serving different populations without taking too much away from another park in the chain. So to anyone who might be worried that this merger will result in the closure of some of the smaller parks that are too close to one another, I don't think that's going to be a problem. And it doesn't sound like the company plans on closing or selling off any of their parks at this time. Having this geographical diversity is important because it means that the company doesn't have to worry as much when one of their parks goes down because of weather or seasonal variability. This is especially true with northern parks like Cedar Point, Canada's Wonderland, La Ronde, and Great America that operate on a seasonal basis and can't make money during the winter months because it's too cold. An expanded portfolio of parks reduces the chain's reliance on these seasonal parks because they'll have more parks in milder climates that can operate when others cannot. I think this graph exemplifies this concept best. After the merge, no single region will contribute more than 30% of park level profit, and no single park will contribute more than 17% of park level profit, thus reducing reliance on a single region or single park to carry the company during hard times. Another benefit to this merger is that the two companies will be able to share resources and assets more freely. For example, the company will retain their old IPs like DC Comics, Looney Tunes, and Peanuts, which will make them accessible to any park in the chain, which will open up new opportunities for theming and storytelling. That doesn't mean that they have to, or that we'll see it happen right away, but the option is there. Additionally, both companies have a lot of experience and expertise in different areas, and there are pros and cons to how both chains have operated and invested in their parks. By bringing these teams together, we can see, as stated in the press release, a more robust operating model and technology platform to drive improved guest experiences and park efficiencies. These companies can learn a lot from each other, and I think that the hope here is that the merger will allow them to take the best parts of each company to create the best possible guest experience for everyone. Additionally, having a larger portfolio of parks and attractions will result in greater opportunities for cash flow and investments across the chain. Now, along with that comes the concern that some of the smaller parks might get overlooked. Think of Michigan's Adventure, Valley Fair, Six Flags Great Escape, Frontier City. What becomes of those parks? Because they tend to get overlooked as it is, so would adding more parks add to that neglect even more? I'm hoping that isn't the case, but that's always a possibility with any chain. Even the smaller ones like Hershey, you have parks like Wild Adventures and Kentucky Kingdom that get completely ignored in favor of parks like Dollywood and Silver Dollar City. The other big piece of context that would explain why this merger is happening is we are still recovering from the pandemic. It may seem like we're back to normal, but these companies are still playing catch up. Now, this is worthy of a video all on its own, but I think this is why we're seeing the parks invest so much in family attractions lately. They need something to bring in families and to drive their attendance up. That, combined with the effects of inflation and the fact that we're all broke out here, means that the tourism industry is pretty vulnerable right now. By joining forces, Cedar Fair and Six Flags are ensuring the longevity of both brands, and again, even if one market isn't doing so well, being able to freely share resources across the chain ensures that everyone does well without relying too much on a single property or region. All of this sounds great, but if you're like me, you probably still have some questions and concerns about all of this. After all, I did say at the beginning of this video that Six Flags and Cedar Fair are two very different companies with very different identities and very different ways of doing things. For the rest of this video, I want to address those concerns and give my 2 cents on the matter. Keep in mind that a lot of this will be my own opinions and speculation. I'm just a regular theme park fan like everyone else, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. The first thing I want to get out of the way are park names. We know that the name of the new company will be Six Flags, so does that mean that we're going to see the Six Flags prefix in front of all the Cedar Fair parks now? Well, this one I can actually say with some certainty, but the company does not have any intentions to change the name of any of their existing parks. So Six Flags Cedar Point and Six Flags Kings Island aren't going to show up on Google Maps anytime soon. With this, you should also keep in mind that Six Flags already has parks like Luron and Frontier City that don't have the Six Flags name in their titles. That's not to say that new names aren't entirely out of the question, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, and it would be done very strategically for specific parks. To be honest, I can actually see some of the old Six Flags parks dropping the prefix from their name, especially for some of the smaller parks like Darien Lake or Great Escape. On the other end of the spectrum, even parks like Six Flags Magic Mountain are usually just called Magic Mountain by most people, so it could really go either way. The other major concern I've been hearing from people is the worry that the quality of operations will decrease across the former Cedar Fair parks. Six Flags has the unfortunate reputation for being the discount chain, and most people see Six Flags as a chain with less than optimal operations compared to Cedar Fair, which tends to have higher standards. I have a few things to say about this. First of all, remember that both chains have a very diverse range of parks, and despite being related through their parent company, each one has their own character and way of doing things. Local park management has more influence on the way parks operate than a lot of enthusiasts give them credit for. So yes, you have Six Flags parks that aren't run as well as they could be, but there are also Six Flags parks that are run exceptionally well. I mean, Six Flags Great Adventure had some of the best operations I'd ever seen at a regional park during my last visit. And the same can be said of Cedar Fair. Parks like Cedar Point and Kings Island have some great reputations, but Worlds of Fun and Michigan's Adventure aren't going to reach that same standard. So yeah, I think it's important to remember that parks have a certain degree of independence, and this is something we'll return to later. And then, to reiterate everything I said earlier, bringing together the two companies should bring out the best in both to create the best possible guest experience. It's highly unlikely that the new company would allow any of their parks to regress in any capacity. They are doing this because they want to see improvements. On a similar note, Six Flags has been known for their blatant advertising and unceremoniously slapping IPs on off-the-shelf rides. Not to mention overusing names like Goliath, Batman, Joker, and some variation on Spinsanity. On the flip side, Cedar Fair has been creating immersive experiences in themed lands like Frontier Canada, Jungle X, Adventureport, and so on. Even Worlds of Fun has been leaning into their park-wide Around the World in 80 Days theme lately, but let's remember that Six Flags isn't completely devoid of theming either. Some of those parks actually have some really nice looking areas. Some of them could use a bit of work, but the potential is there. And if this company is going to run the way I think it's going to be run, I think we can expect more of that. Six Flags has already shown us what they can do with things like Pirates of Spelunker Cave, Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger, and the new trains for the Monstra. And sure, we may see some DC-themed attractions at the old Cedar Fair parks, but again, I think it's going to be very strategic, specific, and tasteful. Actually, the running thesis that I have with this merger is that the new company is going to respect the individual character of each park. Of course, every chain has certain aspects that are signature to the brand, but these parks also have a lot of character all on their own. I think one of the best case studies for this is Six Flags Great Escape. In many ways, you can tell that it's a Six Flags park. At the same time, it's vastly different from any other park I've visited. They don't have anything related to DC or Looney Tunes. Instead, their kids area is themed around its own original IP of woodland creatures. Even their skip the line system, which is usually called the Flash Pass at other Six Flags parks, is simply called the Go Fast Pass at Great Escape. And the park honors her history by maintaining the Storybook Village displays and just by leaning into the Adirondack atmosphere. It's still a Six Flags park, but it retains its own unique identity, and I think that's exactly what we can expect from every park going forward. I'm not saying there won't be change, and I'm definitely not saying that every change will be good. Maybe we will see some M&M ads pop up at Cedar Point, I don't know. But as funny as the memes are, I don't think this merger is going to result in anything too drastic for the parks. I mean, I hope we see some general improvements across the chain, but I think we can put the fears that Millennium Force will be rebranded as Goliath and the racer will feature left Twix and right Twix trains to rest. It's not gonna happen. Now, there are some things that I am genuinely concerned about, and a lot of them boil down to pricing. Six Flags and Cedar Fair were already large chains, so now that they're combined, are we now entering territory where we should be concerned about a monopoly? Well, I think it's important to remember that as big of a player as these two companies are, they aren't the only regional park chain in the continent. We also have Hershend, Palace Entertainment, Merlin, and lots of independently owned parks as well. Nevertheless, could this reduction in competition entice the company to dramatically increase their prices? It's possible. Realistically, I can see some big increases for the Six Flags parks since they're typically priced lower than Cedar Fair, and hopefully that would mean that the Cedar Fair parks don't see too much of a change. Now that's for single day tickets, but what about season passes? The two companies have very different systems for their season passes, and while there's pros and cons to each, they're going to need to find a way to reconcile them so that the same system is used across all of the parks. And again, my biggest concern for them is pricing, specifically as it pertains to a top tier pass that includes all parks in the chain. The two companies have already stated that such a thing is a possibility, but will an expanded portfolio result in a higher price tag for this multi-park pass? For someone like me who gets both a Cedar Fair Platinum Pass and a Six Flags Extreme Pass, it probably won't make much of a difference. In fact, it might even be slightly cheaper if I only have to buy one pass. But for someone who gets one or the other, I'm afraid that it could price them out. I don't know what the company is planning there, but it is something I've been thinking about. Likewise, what will become of their Skip the Line pass? Again, the systems are very different. At the Cedar Fair parks, Fastlane allows you to enter a dedicated queue whenever you like, as many times as you like. At the Six Flags parks, the Flash Pass works like a virtual queue that reduces your wait time by a certain percentage depending on what tier you get. As a traveler, I prefer Six Flags system, but enjoy the convenience of using Fastlane at my home park, especially because I have the all-season option. I'm not sure if the chain will want to standardize the system across all of their parks or let each park choose which version they want, but I can see some changes happening around that, especially if they offer an all-park, all-season Fastlane option. Despite some of these uncertainties, I think the thing we all need to take away from all of this is that it's going to be okay. There's no need to panic. Like I said, these companies want to move forward together to create the best experience possible for their guests. And aside from a few potential price increases, I think they're going to be careful to ensure that that goal comes to fruition. While the parks may see some changes over the coming years, I think these changes will occur on a park-to-park basis that will respect the current identity and character of the parks. I think it's also worth mentioning that any plans that are already in motion at the parks will probably still be carried out. These parks already have an internal agenda, and I don't think the new company will want to deviate too far from that, especially considering that we're still retaining the same key players in the executive. Like, we're not seeing a big shakeup in leadership, so why would we see a big change to the plans? And hey, let's remember that the deal isn't even set to close until mid-2024, so any changes we do see wouldn't happen until 2025 anyways. But that's just my thoughts. What do you think about this merger between Six Flags and Cedar Fair? Do you agree with my thoughts? Let me know your opinions and concerns in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more theme park discussions, plus vlogs from all of my theme park and attraction-based adventures, please consider becoming a subscriber. You can also find me on social media. I'm at ADVParker on Instagram, X, and Threads, and at Adventures with Parker on TikTok and Facebook. As always, big shout out to my patrons for all of the extra support you give the channel, and be sure to visit patreon.com/advparker if you want to learn how you can support the channel with a monthly donation. Finally, for fun merch featuring designs inspired by my adventures, visit Adventure Outposts at awpmerch.myspreadshop.com. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, the adventures are calling. See ya!